Boone and Crockett Club presents Our Way or No Way by M.R. James, 24th Big Game Awards Program. Preface. To some, the prehistoric muskox may appear to be a slow-moving, docile animal. Nothing could be further from the truth. Even with their seemingly small stature of under 5 feet, a mature bull can weigh 900 pounds and reach speeds of 37 miles per hour. Their horns are deadly weapons, used to fight off Arctic wolves, polar bears, and brown bears. From the muskox perspective, a man with a bow is an easy target. At 50 yards, a muskox could reach you in under 5 seconds with enough energy to launch you 100 feet. That is, if you weren't gored in the process. Enjoy the story. "No closer," cautioned my Inuit guide, Charlie Bolt, raising his rifle just in case. "Shoot now! Shoot the white-horned bull!" Easier said than done, I mumbled to myself. Over 50 yards of frozen, wind-swept tundra still stretched between us and the two huge musk ox that stood facing us, pawing at the snow menacingly while lowering their heavy-horned heads as if contemplating an imminent charge. What would have been a simple shot for any rifleman was next to impossible for a savvy bow hunter. Even if the buffeting crosswind miraculously failed to affect my arrow's flight and accuracy, I knew from 4 decades of bow hunting experience that a frontal shot on such a large animal would be pure folly. Too much thick hair and hide, tough muscle and dense bone stood between my shaving-sharp broadhead and the bull's vitals. Somehow I had to cut the remaining distance by nearly half and work myself into position for a broadside shot, preferably without further provoking my obviously worried guide or the 2 agitated bulls. Fair chase bow hunting for muskox, I was quickly discovering, can be an exercise in frustration. My hunting partner, Bob Ely of Pennsylvania, and I had lost a full day of hunting to the fickle Arctic weather gods. Then, after locating 2 good bachelor bulls just after dawn on our first clear day afield, we parked the snow machines and began our stalk only to watch in stunned disbelief as the twin bulls instantly whirled and galloped away upon catching sight of us. Time after frustrating time. Throughout the long day, stalk after fruitless stalk, we tried and failed to move within good bow range. 50 to 60 yards was as close as we could get. That's tempting yardage, but impractical in bitter cold, wind-whipped shooting conditions. The last we saw of our 2 trophy bulls, they were disappearing over a ridgeline a couple of miles away, still running. Leg-weary, wind-burned, and emotionally drained, Bob and I returned to our comfy tent camp that night with a much better appreciation of the daunting task facing us. However, despite our disappointment, we agreed it hadn't been worth the risk of wounding and losing one of those great shaggy beasts, or forcing our guides to finish off a poorly hit bull with a bullet. We'd do it our way or no way. The next morning, we climbed into our enclosed sleds that were roped behind the guide's snow machines and headed out across a great flat that resembled a snow-covered moonscape. Soon, we cut the meandering trail of 2 big nomadic bulls made sometime the previous night. After a hurried and animated conference, our excited guides turned their snowmobiles to follow the tracks. 1 hour passed. 2, 3. The sunny but frigid morning slipped slowly away as we paralleled the bull's trail, our hopes soaring each time we approached a promising ridge, but falling each time we topped the rise, only to see more empty tundra stretching endlessly ahead of us. It seemed as if we were following tundra phantoms, not flesh and blood creatures whose ancestors have tracked across these same icy wastelands since prehistoric times. Riding in a bouncing wooden sled across miles of frozen tundra is a bone-jarring, tooth-rattling experience. Our base camp was perhaps 90 to 100 miles from the small village of Kugluktuk on the shores of the Arctic Ocean, and how far we ranged from camp in our daily search for Ooming Mac, the bearded one, is anyone's guess. All I knew was it would be a long hike back to civilization in the event of any mechanical breakdowns. But there was obvious comfort in hunting in pairs and in knowing a radio was our link to the outside world. It was late March. Already several days had passed since I winged north from my Montana home, overnighted in Yellowknife, and met my hunting companion and 2 other musk ox hunters who had also booked a hunt with veteran North Country outfitter Fred Webb. Together, we caught a morning flight to Coppermine to embark on what was an unforgettable adventure. I was discovering, just as every musk ox hunter I knew had told me, the appeal of this hunt lies in the overall experience. In this stark, frozen land. In the native guides, whose knowledge of the Arctic and its wildlife is amazing. In testing oneself in an unfriendly environment where wind and bitter cold are constant companions. In finding a unique creature that is a true survivor in an inhospitable world. A special animal largely unchanged since Stone Age hunters pursued the forebears of these same beasts, armed only with flint-tipped spears. Back to the present, our whining snowmobiles crested yet another ridge, and there they were. The 2 bulls, dark dots against a sea of frozen white, were plodding on perhaps a mile ahead. The Inuits quickly braked their machines and held a brief conference while Bob and I studied the distant bulls through our binoculars. Then we were off again, Bob and his guide veering to the left while Charlie steered his snowmobile in a looping arc to the right. Moments later, we eased to a stop just below a ridgeline. As Charlie shouldered his pack and rifle, I stretched ride-stiffened muscles and pulled my bow once to make certain the rough ride or sub-zero cold hadn't rendered it useless. And then we were moving to the top of the ridge and beyond, dropping into a shallow bowl where the bulls should appear. And suddenly the bulls were there. But this time there was no turning and running. This time, when these 2 old bulls spotted us moving slowly down the frozen rise, they simply stopped and turned to face us, waiting and watching without apparent concern. It wasn't until we'd closed the distance to perhaps half 100 yards that they began to paw the snow and shake their woolly heads. That's precisely when Charlie readied his rifle and warned we'd moved close enough for me to shoot the white-horned bull. Turning, I shook my head. "Closer," I said. "Can't shoot. Too far." And with each word, I took another cautious step closer to the waiting bulls. Shaking his hooded head, Charlie moved after me. "Close enough," he insisted. "Shoot now." "Can't," I said again. "Too far." At 40 yards, I raised my tinted goggles and slipped the mitten off my shooting hand, slowly easing to my knees to study the muskox, with my worried guide crouching just behind me. The bulls still offered only an impossible head-on shot. Cautiously, I inched closer still, not taking my eyes from the shaggy apparitions looming before me, wispy guard hairs fluttering in the whipping crosswind. Although I would have preferred to close the distance by another 5 to 10 yards, I sensed this was as near as I could get without inviting real trouble. Staring at 2 agitated muskox occasionally pawing the snow, with only some 100 feet of empty air between us, I couldn't help but recall Fred Webb's story of one rifle-toting client who had been charged, trampled, and injured when he violated a bull's perceived safety zone. I certainly didn't want to have to explain how I came to get hoof prints all over my snow parka. Speaking softly, I asked Charlie to move slowly to my left. If the bulls concentrated on my guide and turned to face him as he eased sideways, maybe I could get the broadside shot I needed. And the tactic worked perfectly. Except when the bulls turned, my white-horned bull was perfectly screened by his traveling companion. And even when Charlie moved behind me and edged to my right, the bigger bull wouldn't turn far enough to present me with the shot I needed for a quick, clean kill. Talk about a frustrating standoff. As my mind raced for some solution, I spotted Bob and his guide watching the unfolding drama from a ridgeline maybe 150 yards away. A new idea struck me, and I motioned Bob to circle around and approach from behind us. Within 10 minutes, he was kneeling beside me, listening as I quickly explained what I had in mind while Charlie and Bob's Inuit guide warily eyed the increasingly nervous bulls, rifles ready for instant action in case the bulls charged. Wishing Bob good luck, I carefully got to my feet and began sidling to my left. On cue, the 2 bulls turned as I moved, and moments later I saw Bob draw, hold, and release. His arrow caught the second bull mid-body, angling forward. Immediately, the mortally hit bull spun and lunged away in a spray of hoof-churned snow. My white-horned bull trailed close behind. Bob's arrow quickly weakened the lumbering bull. He labored to the nearest ridgetop before pausing to bed down while his companion paced close beside him. Trailing quickly after them, Charlie and I ducked out of sight and crept closer. When I finally rose to peer over the ridge, Bob's bull lay only 20 short yards away. My bull was standing just behind him, stubbornly refusing to leave. And when he turned and strode into the clear, he was perfectly broadside. My arrow struck him just behind the right foreleg, its three-blade broadhead burying deep in the off shoulder. The huge white-horned bull spun in a tight circle and mere seconds later collapsed beside Bob's bull. Our frustrating, memorable, once-in-a-lifetime Arctic adventure was over. Not only had we collected 2 great big game trophies, we'd done it our way, a very special way. As of 2023, M.R. James's muskox, taken in the year 2000, holds the number 12 position in the Boone and Crockett Club's all-time records book, with a final score of 126 2/8 inches. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoy content like this, please share it with a friend. You can find even more stories here, or visit boone-crockett.org to see associated pictures and score charts. And as always, thank you for supporting the Boone and Crockett Club.